So today we're talking about the New York Knicks trading Julius Randle to the Memphis Grizzlies. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. I'm trying to post as much Knicks videos as I can, and obviously Grizzly fans will be getting going when the games start. Really hasn't been much to talk about. It's just they're two different teams in two different places. The Grizzlies are trying to win a championship. The Knicks are trying to make the playoffs. But this trade could be very interesting here, and here's the reason why. So Julius Randle last season averaged 20, 10, and 5. He was super inefficient. Obviously, he's not the best defender. Memphis is a great defensive team. They definitely could use some more offense in the front court, and they'd be hoping that they're getting the Randle from 2021, not the Randle from last season. I mean, the Randle that was second team All NBA. Randle is in great shape. He's very motivated. How does he fit next to Jaren Jackson Jr. and Steven Adams is going to be the question here because they're sacrificing defense by getting him, but they're also gaining a lot more offense. So it's going to come down to the fact if you're a Grizzly fan, what do you value more right now, offense or defense? And to me, it's got to be offense. I mean, you look at the Grizzlies, right? Like John Morant is not a good defender, but he's at least active. Desmond Bane is a great defender. And again, I'm not using statistics, I'm using my eyes. So I could say something, it could be wrong. But Desmond Bane's a good defender. Jaren Jackson Jr. obviously is an elite defender, needs to keep the fouls to a minimum, but Steven Adams is another guy. Steven Adams is actually better offensively, but defensively he's really good at rebounding and he holds his own, physical guy. In this trade, that's what it's going to come down to. If you're a Grizzly fan, it's like, what am I giving up here? And let's take a look, right? So let's share the screen here. And let's go to Google. So the first player in this trade is going to be Dillon Brooks. Brooks is very streaky to say the least. I want to pull up his stats and then I'll talk about him. All right, cool. So Brooks last season averaged 18.4 points, 3.2 rebounds, 2.8 assists. He had a PR of 15.55. Brooks came back later on in the season and he just made a huge impact. Mostly defensively, like sure, he's giving you 18.4 points, but I mean, if you look at his splits, 30.9% from three, 43.2% from the field. Very streaky shooter, can win you a game, can lose you a game. Unfortunately for the Grizzlies, he lost them more games than he won them. If you take Brooks away from this team, it really doesn't matter. I like Brooks a lot as a person and as a player, but they've got Zaire Williams. Is Zaire ready? Probably not. But I mean, Zaire is going to be a better player than Brooks. He's like 20 years old. So losing Brooks really doesn't matter for the Grizzlies. I mean, like, it really just doesn't. So Brooks is gone. You also have Danny Green, who was in he was in the Melton trade. Doesn't matter. The Knicks are just trying to get some sort of salary. I actually don't know what Brooks' contract is now that I think about it. Or he signed a 3-year contract that would see him earn $35 million through 2023. I'm actually okay with the Knicks getting him. So let me go back to my face for a second here. So if you're a Grizzly fan, if you're the Grizzlies, you can lose Brooks because he is expendable because you've got Zaire and the defense like isn't the concern for the Grizzlies. It's putting the ball in the hoop. They've really struggled to find offense without Ja. They can lose Brooks, but the Knicks gaining Brooks actually is really interesting because if you look at the Knicks, Brooks is a 2 and a 3. So at the 2, the Knicks have well, that's the thing. I mean, the Knicks kind of have guys that can play multiple positions, but mostly Quentin Grimes and Evan Fournier at the 2, and then at the 3, it's like RJ and Cam Reddish. So Brooks's defense would be good on the Knicks. The Knicks were a top 10 defensive team, though. The Knicks really I mean, I know Tibb would love Brooks, but, like, the Knicks really don't have much use for Brooks either because he's gonna take minutes away from Cam Reddish, and, I mean, where do you play RJ at the 2 and Brooks at the 3? Do you bring Brooks off the bench? So, the Grizzlies honestly have more use for Brooks than the Knicks, even though they've got Zaire. I mean, Brooks, just the fact that he can shoot the 3 and defend is really good for the Grizzlies because he's playing next to John Morant. So you have Bane, you have Brooks, you have 2 guys that can defend, that can shoot the ball next to Ja. It makes a lot of sense. So I don't know how the Knicks would benefit off of Dillon Brooks. I feel like this might sound confusing, but I mean, the Knicks need to prioritize developing players, while the Grizzlies could certainly use a guy who can defend and shoot. So that's why the Knicks don't have a use for him. I'd rather just develop Cam Reddish. It would be like the Grizzlies just developing their players and being like, we don't want Brooks because we want to develop Zaire. The Grizzlies really could use Brooks, even though Zaire is going to be a better player and I have more faith in him. You can never go wrong with a 3-and-D guy. But like for the Knicks, I mean, Brooks taking minutes over Cam Reddish or Quentin Grimes, it doesn't make sense. So hopefully you guys understand that. Of course, a 2024 first-round pick, which is lottery protected. So basically, it's going to be probably around 20. It's going to be late. It's going to be like 25, probably, maybe even higher. So it's not going to be a good draft pick. So you're gaining Brooks, who you'll have under contract for 2023, expiring contract, and Danny Green. Let's actually make sure Danny Green is expiring here because I don't definitively know that. Yes, you guys can see right here, it's an expiring contract. So the Knicks are basically getting Dylan Brooks and a first for Julius Randle. To that point, I would do it. I really wouldn't want Brooks here just because of it would limit the development of Cam Reddish and some other players. But at the same time, I mean, Dylan Brooks would be huge because it's like imagine, you have Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett, Dylan Brooks, like Obi Toppin. Yeah, this also unlocks like Obi's starting now if we do this trade. So this is a good trade for both sides because the Knicks can start Obi Toppin. They legit get a guy who can defend and shoot, who they're only gonna have to pay for like, two more seasons. And I wouldn't even totally be against giving Brooks an extension like next season. Like Dylan Brooks, he's so streaky and you really can't trust him, but in a lesser role, he could be very productive for the Knicks, honestly. And he's got that playoff experience, not much playoff experience. I mean, really only 3 rounds of playoff experience, at least for the Grizzlies that I can recall. And then for the Grizzlies, they just gain more offense. They could put Tripp at the 5, Randall at the 4, 3 Zaire, 2 Bane, 1 Ja. I mean, if for the Grizzlies going into the playoffs with that rotation would be very deadly because especially if they match up with the Warriors again. Well, now you still have a rim protector there, obviously, but like the Warriors are gonna have to match up with Tripp and Randall can shoot the ball. Like Randall, you can say what you want of his efficiency, but he can knock down the three and he's in better shape. So if the Grizzlies do get back that Randall from 2021 that was second team All NBA, I mean him, Ja, Bane, Tripp, and Zaire another leap would just be ridiculous. It probably is the best team in the West, being real with you, because the Grizzlies, like last season, were fighting with the Warriors without Ja Morant, and now they have Ja healthy. Now they have like a 25 points per game scorer they're adding. They're losing out on Brooks, who is extremely inefficient. And I just feel like Randall would kind of be unlocked under Taylor Jenkins. I don't really think Randall and Coach Tibb is a good fit at all. So I covered the Grizzlies. I watched every Grizzlies game. I covered the Knicks. I watched every Knicks game. In my personal opinion, this is a good trade for both sides. A lot of people are going to disagree. I imagine a lot of Grizzly fans won't want Randall. A lot of Knicks fans won't do this. I'm going to imagine that Knicks fans would do this just because it gets rid of Randall alone. And I know my Grizzlies Discord actually sent me this, and I know they were enjoying this. So I really don't see how anyone would not want this trade. But if you guys don't want this trade, let me know. And that's really the video, guys. Hopefully you have a good one. Knicks Daily, Grizzlies Kingdom. I'll see you in the next one.